Hey, what's up guys? It's Joe from GadgetryTech.com, and today I have the 2016 Lexus GSF. Now the GSF is the top line model for Lexus when it comes to a high performance sedan. This has the same 5-liter, 467 horsepower that you get in the RCF, which debuted last year and is doing pretty well. It shares a lot of similar components. The engine is the same. It's that same 467 horsepower motor. You have the same 8-speed transmission that has the direct shifting and the paddle shifters on the steering wheel, stuff like that. The brakes are actually the same as well. It has 14.9-inch brakes in the front, 14.5 in the back. 6-piston calipers, 4-piston calipers. Now, it looks similar to a GS. You got a lot of the same features and components of your GS 200T, which is the turbo, or the GS 350 and 350F Sport. However, the difference is you can tell it right away it's a different car when you get in it, and it's not just what the exhaust sounds like when you start it. The steering is heavier. You have that, of course, the throaty exhaust, but the suspension is stiffer. So when you're driving around town, you're going to feel a lot more bumps. So if you want raw performance, this car is excellent. There's no denying that it's extremely fast. It's got a mid 4-second 0 to 60 time, which rivals a lot of muscle cars that are known to be highly respected on the enthusiast realm of things. But when you take performance out, you still get a nice luxury sedan. I put the kids in the back. It's a little tighter once you start putting car seats in there, but there's still plenty of space. But 4 6-foot-tall adults can fit in the car, no problem. So you have all that space, but then when you want to take it on a track, it drives very similar to the RCF. Now, if you see my video with the RCF before, I really liked that car because it was very easy to drive, especially compared to an M4, which likes to kind of get a little squirrely when you're really getting on the gas. But believe it or not, even though this car is a lot longer, a lot larger inside in volume, it only weighs just over 100 pounds more than the RCF. That's a pretty ridiculous accomplishment when you consider how big this car is. So with that being said, you actually don't sacrifice much. This is more expensive. It's $85,000 versus $63,000 for the RCF, but now you get room to haul the families. Instead of owning 2 cars, your weekend track car and then your daily driver, you can actually get it both with this. So the value is excellent, and then you can have the best of both worlds. On the racetrack, with the similar weight to the RCF, it felt great. You can tell it's a little bit slower just from that weight, but the longer wheelbase of this vehicle makes the car a lot more stable. So if you're not the best race car driver and you're trying to get as much performance and speed as you can out of the vehicle, this car is actually easier to drive fast than the RCF. RCF feels a little bit tighter and more race-like. However, this still holds up really well, and you can actually put up pretty similar track times. So I think that speaks to a lot to what they accomplished. All right, so now let's take a look at the front of the car. Now, if you look closely, you can see a triple stacked LED headlight. That is a standard option. You don't have to add it, unlike the RCF where it's an additional package. Everything you're seeing here is what comes in the base model. Now, it has some similarities to the standard GSF, the 2016, as far as the angles go with the headlights and these the daytime running LEDs. However, the change happens down at the bottom. You're going to see a lot more aggressive lower front bumper, and part of that is for cooling. I mean, I could stick my hand in there. There's a huge air inlet to help keep the temps down. And on the side here, you have twin oil coolers. Now, when you're on a racetrack and you're pushing a big, heavy car like this that has a giant 5-liter V8, temperatures start to go up. And when that happens, reliability goes down. So because Lexus has always prided itself as being one of the most reliable brands in the world for a long time now, extra cooling, super necessary. When you look behind the front wheel well, where the right tire, where the passenger tire is, you can actually see a cutout to help get that air pulled through the front bumper and keep everything cool. So I think that's really cool. Now, this does have the radar sensing system. So you can see the sensors up by the rear view mirror. You can see it here, and there's also a couple little parking sensors here. Now, what that does, if you're driving 60 miles an hour, you may look down for a second, or someone cuts you off and they're going really slow, the car can actually detect if you're about to be in an accident and alert you, so you can be aware of your surroundings. So it does have a lot of the smart technology that you're finding in vehicles now for safety. However, most of what you see and most of what you're paying for over the standard GS is all of those performance bits. So now when we take a look under the hood, we're going to see that 5-liter V8 I was talking about. Now this engine first came out loosely with the ISF, I think it was 2008. The block is somewhat similar to the new engine, but almost everything's been replaced, which is why you have such a massive bump in horsepower. It is, however, pretty much identical to the RCF that debuted last year. I feel like the tuning is different. The exhaust actually sounds different when you're shifting and downshifting, stuff like that, compared to the RC. So just like the RC, you have the anodized blue intake manifold, which kind of adds a nice element. That blue is not because this car is blue, so keep that in mind when you buy your Lexus. If you get an orange GSF or a silver one, that intake manifold is still going to be blue, so keep that in mind. Now, there isn't a lot going on as far as chassis bracing goes. They did a lot of that with the body structure itself. So unlike other performance cars, you usually see giant bars that go into the engine bay. It didn't need that with this car, and I know it looks like it's kind of soft because there's no bracing there. I've driven a lot of cars on the track that fall in this price range, and it's remarkably stiff, so don't let that fool you. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward engine bay. Of course, you have the flame retardant material. This also helps with temperatures. Hydraulically assisted hood because it's an $85,000 car, so you should get that. But it's still very easy to service, even though it's a performance vehicle. Very easy to change the air filter, access all your fluids, test the battery, stuff like that. Other than that, that pretty much covers the engine bay. We're going to take a look at the exhaust, and that should wrap up the outside of the car. All right, so there's a signature look that comes with all F-Series cars from Lexus, and that's the quad-stacked exhaust system. This car is no different. You also get the clear lenses with the black backing behind it, so that kind of gives it a darker, more aggressive look. You have the carbon fiber rear spoiler, which is standard, backup camera, and this lower panel here for the bottom diffuser is also black. So that kind of helps make the back end a little bit more aggressive. Otherwise, body line wise, it's not really any different than the standard GS. They just kind of add a few bits to it to spruce it up a bit. Now that we're at the back of the car, we might as well hear what the exhaust sounds like. So I'm going to step over and start it up. That way you can hear it when you first fire it up. We'll give it some gas and hopefully get a good feel for what it sounds like in real life. All right, so now let's take a quick look at the interior. I'm going to fire this guy up. And as you can see, the steering wheel and the seat move to my ideal driving position. That also is available with the standard GS that comes with that car. You don't have to buy the F to get that feature, but it is kind of nice because it makes it easier to get out and easier to get back in. You have dual zone climate control, a nice large screen up top. Now this isn't touchscreen, everything is controlled by this palm system here, this palm based controller. So I have the little joystick, map menu, up down if I want to quickly navigate stuff. There's also enter buttons on the side, so if I don't want to push this down, I can just click here. Now with this driver selector here, you have Eco, Normal, Sport, or Sport S and Sport S Plus. Now Sport S and S Plus both improve the dynamics of the vehicle, S Plus being more extreme as far as the way the steering and the suspension stiffness goes, but they'll also hold your gears out longer and it'll shift a lot more aggressively if you're driving in a performance-oriented manner. This one has an adjustable TVD or torque vectoring differential, so if I have normal, I have slalom and track. Now the differential will help you control how the car behaves when you're going in and out of a turn at high speeds. It'll kind of help you shift it a certain way. So that's kind of a nice feature. Everything else is kind of similar look and feel to the other GS. You just have more performance-oriented gauges as far as monitoring things, like you have a G sensor, you have the torque distribution of the rear differential, a lap timer, tire pressure, and that's not available on the standard GS. So that pretty much wraps it up. The seats, like I said, are a lot more aggressive. They bolster you in quite well. And that pretty much wraps up the layout of the interior.